Welcome to Spring LIB.
All right, so for this question, I kind of wanted to run through all of our multiple choice options just to sort of explore why they might or might not be the most important factors for sustainability in marine biomes. So marine biomes are, saltwater biomes, the ocean, estuaries, etc. So the first we're given is wind. Now, wind we know is very important in aquatic biomes. In general, it will, like in lakes and sort of by the coast especially, wind pushes water away, like in its direction, which allows water that's like maybe lower, um, closer to the bottom of the body of water up, which can bring nutrients and like dead organisms and oxygen, etc., up to the surface, which can be beneficial for organisms living up there. The problem with this in marine biomes is that in the open ocean, which is the majority of marine biomes, you're not really going to have wind be that effective at bringing up like anything from the bottom of the ocean because it is so farther down than I can show on the screen, for instance. And while it can, cause waves and circulate water on the surface, that's not really going to affect all the life that's like living here. So it's not really a factor influencing sustaining life in like most parts of a marine biome. So we can probably put A out of our option choices. Now, soil is a very important abiotic factor in terrestrial biomes, but in a marine biome, yes, while soil might have drifted from shorelines, maybe, and while that might provide some form of nutrition based on whatever compounds are present in it, it's going to be very, very minimal. This is an aquatic biome. Soil isn't really going to play much of a factor on the life there. So we can almost certainly put that out. Now, salt is interesting in that a lot of life in non-marine biomes cannot survive in this type of environment with high salt levels, but marine life has adapted to high salinity, especially in estuaries where salt levels can vary. But in the open ocean, salinity is actually usually pretty equal throughout the body of water, even from like the top level on down. Now, like I said, these animals and plants and plankton have adapted to surviving in a high salinated environment. And if they were removed from here, or if these levels were to start to change and maybe go down or even increase to a point where, they weren't adapted to those levels anymore, that would be very harmful and would be most likely fatal. I mean, have you ever, tried to put a saltwater fish in freshwater? Don't. That's not good. So this, is much more important in terms of sustaining life in the ocean. So C, we can probably consider one of our possible answers. But before we, settle on it, let's take a look at warm. So there are parts of, the water that can be relatively warm in a marine biome, closer to the sun, out in an open ocean, especially where there's like some thermal stratification happening. The top layers, the warmest. As you get deeper, it gets colder and colder. But life has adapted to all of these different levels, even if at one level where it might be warmer, there might be more variety of life, at least in terms of like mobile life. Maybe there are more plankton or bacteria living further down. At the same time, the question or the option is more, it states warmth and not temperature. Changes in temperature and temperature itself is very vital abiotic factor in life in the like all aquatic biomes. But warmth in particular, if let's say it gets to be too warm, that can start to be pretty detrimental, since not only will the warming effect have a negative effect on the water itself in terms of its oxygen levels and nutrition levels, and in terms of, what's dissolved in it, it will also be dangerous for many organisms to survive in. So warmth in and of itself isn't a life-sustaining factor in an aquatic biome as it might be in a terrestrial biome in the winter, for instance. So based on these choices, option C, salt, given that this is a marine biome that we're looking at, is most likely our